I think I knew very early on that it should be a love story, even though that took a bit of grappling. I remember talking to Sarah really early on, and Jack and Harry Williams, and they were like, "Oh, it'd be really interesting to know what happens if Fleabag falls in love." And I was like, "That is not a story I want to tell."
First up, it's quite exciting this, because they're going to ping onto their videos. Okay, we have Ms. Phoebe Waller-Bridge, creator, writer, actor, and executive producer of Fleabag. Phoebe, please switch on your camera. Amazing! This is so exciting. It's like you're all popping out from behind curtains. We have Harry Bradbeer, the director of both series of Fleabag. Hello, Harry. There you are.
Hello.
Whoa! We have Gary Dollner, who is the editor. Gary, where are you?
Hello.
He's there. All right. And we have Sarah Hammond, producer. Sarah, are you there? Hello. And we have Sian Clifford, amazing actor. Hello, Sian. Are you there?
Hello.
Yay! We're all virtually together. This is fantastic. So I'd like to obviously congratulate you not only on a wonderful series, but on your nominations. You have 3 nominations for the TV Awards and 3 nominations in the Craft Awards, and also a nomination for the moment, which we can describe as perhaps the confession scene. This is voted for by the public. You've got to have a nomination for that. I imagine that it's the Virgin's must-see moment. I imagine you'll have quite a few votes for that one. Okay, so we're going to start off. We're going to rewind. Okay, rewind. Imagine we go back, and we go back to the clip that everyone has just seen, which is right at the beginning of series 2. Okay, the series begins 371 days, 19 hours, and 26 minutes after the first series, and we begin in a restaurant. It's an unusual episode, I would say. It's almost theatrical. It's a 1-scene episode. We do go to the toilet a little bit and we go outside for a cigarette, but it's a 1-scene episode.
We all do.
Yeah, I mean, this is life. I suppose what I wanted to know really is the ambitions for that first episode. And I'm going to start with you, Phoebe, because it starts with you, Phoebe. So what were the ambitions? What did you feel like you had to do and wanted to do with that first episode?
Well, first of all, I wanted to be able to recap everything without recapping everything. So if you know what I mean, without it being kind of expositional, because it had been 2 years since the last series. And even though there would have been there was a brilliant recap anyway to actually show what's happened, the emotional updating of where everybody was the biggest challenge. The first image I had ever for when thinking about the second season was Fleabag. That whole opening scene with Fleabag looking up and she's got the blood down over it, even the song I had in my head and everything. I had no idea what happened. I just was like, that's how it's opening. And I told like all the gang and everyone was like, I mean, yeah, that just feels exactly like it should open, but like, what happens next? And I was like, I don't know. And that's often how it works, I think. So these really strong images. And then the fun bit is kind of piecing together the puzzle of whatever feels right instinctively with that image, and then working out why that image feels so right. Originally, I wrote so many different terrible drafts of terrible versions of the first episode. Harry, your face in this is so funny. And
you look serious.
I know, so serious. And
give me one of the terrible versions, because I always quite like to know the outre ones before you get to the real thing.
Gosh, I can't. I have buried them so deep in my mind, and don't any of you dare reveal them. It was the feeling of having to like set up her new life. Does she still have the cafe? Does she work somewhere? So I had lots of different versions where she was working in the cafe, but certain things had happened, and then this one big event happens in the cafe, or she was temping and there was a new boss to deal with. All of these different things were flying around, and the idea of a dinner party was always sketched out. I knew there was going to be one, but it was always sketched out to be sort of episode 3. And then at some point in the writing process, probably as they all were, these big decisions quite tight to the wire, just decided to jump straight in with that episode. And then the moment we discussed that, and it was, Jenny Robbins was our story producer, was in the room as well, and we all just discussed the idea of doing that. And the moment I sat down, I was actually in the room with the guys. The moment I sat down, I was like, yeah, maybe let's try this. And then I just started writing the episode, and it started pouring out because it seemed like the clearest way to get to feel the tensions without having to explain them to people, and also the whole sort of vibe of Fleabag for me is people having to pretend that they're okay when they're not okay, and there's nothing like a kind of family dinner party to put that pressure on people. So that's how it sort of unraveled. And it was very exciting working out that it was actually Martin who'd punched Fleabag, and that was a real eureka moment, but it sort of worked backwards from that moment.
Yeah, that's great. It could have been anyone, couldn't it, really? Could have could be a passing waitress. But I was going to say also about that particular scene, because obviously everybody is familiar in that scene apart from one character who is, we can just call him the hot priest. So he is the one new character that obviously takes everything in a whole new direction. Everyone else we might know, even if you come to the series having not watched the first series, you can kind of work them out. He is the completely new and specific element. And I suppose I wanted to know when you arrived at him being there.
Well, this character, first of all, important to say that I didn't call him the hot priest. The internet did. You do
at the end. I'm sorry, both of you call him. You say he's hot. You go hot.
No, Fleabag does, but in the script, the character was always just called the priest. of all my years of complaining that women in scripts are described as like Sandra, beautiful, walks in a room, and then it's like a man, then it's all that kind of stuff. So it's very important to me that he was described as the priest. Fleabag does describe him, and Claire later on, but I think I knew very early on that it should be a love story, even though that took a bit of grappling. I remember talking to Sarah really early on, and Jack and Harry Williams, and they were like, oh, it'd be really interesting to know what happens if Fleabag falls in love. And I was like, that is not a story I want to tell. No, shouldn't be defined. But a lot of this Q&A is going to be me saying that, me barking at the brilliant ideas of my producers and director before realising they were brilliant ideas. But but then I really did know I wanted to see a love story on screen. I felt like that's something I really wanted I just wanted, as an audience, wanted to see it. So that's always a really good first port of call. And then realising that there should be a character who Fleabag can't just sum up in a quick line. Like the whole of the first series is her describing people as tube rodent or arsehole guy, and she considers herself to be able to see people very, very quickly at their core. And it was really exciting, the idea of her meeting somebody who she couldn't define. And she tries to, and she says, cool, sweary priest at the beginning. And that's should have been the end of it. And then I really wanted to find somebody who could match her intelligence and her perceptiveness. And then also by making him, a priest and a man of faith and a celibate man, just made the whole thing even more tense for obvious reasons. So that's sort of, but then every time I was sort of trying to write him, it just felt like it was almost too much of a kind of sitcom setup. It's sort of a girl who's obsessed with sex in the first season. It's her way of validating herself, meeting a guy who can't do that. And then the moment the idea of Andrew came into my head, it was just like, it instantly becomes complex and interesting. And then it was just, writing for Andrew is just a joy, because you don't have to say a huge amount, and he's going to imbue it with so much brilliance. And also that she has a relationship with the camera the whole way through, and it was interesting to have somebody who has a similar thing. He's mirrored because he has God, and she's witnessed by the camera the whole way through, and in the end the big question for her is whether or not she can let go of the camera, and he is witnessed by God the whole time and is always having to check into that the whole time, and at the end he has the same question. So it just felt like it was a really good way to mirror each other's journeys.
Yeah, beautiful parallel. Sian, I want to bring you in really quickly, because it says right at the very beginning of this series of Fleabag that it is a love story. That's what you say, but it's a love story between the sisters as well. I mean, there are points where you say, where it is said, we're not friends, we're sisters. That's a different thing. But it is almost not a romance, but an acknowledgement of the love between the two sisters in the arc of the of the second series.
And even, Fleabag with her father, and I think there are so many strands of it to the story, but I think the big theme that sort of spoke to me about the whole series, which I think is something valuable that we can all take away with us, especially right now, is that, we might not like each other, but we love each other. And that's so clear, I think, between those two women, how much they will just they fiercely depend on one another and will fight for each other to the death, but they'll also fight each other to the death. They can't live with or without each other. And I loved that narrative. And Phoebe and I spoke about it while she was developing it. I knew that was something that was really important to her, to tell that story, for them to find their way back to each other after Claire's betrayal at the end of series 1. And I just, the way that Phoebe has created that was, more beautiful than anything I could have imagined, because it's so complex and it's so real. It feels so real because it's not a straight line. It's like it's all over the place, which it would be.
And very raw at certain points.